Yo, what is good, YouTube? Welcome back to another JCB video. In today's video, different style of video, we are going to be ranking the best point guards, or I guess the starting point guards, for every single Eastern Conference team here on this tier list. Different setup here because I want y'all to be able to see the entire tier list, and we're going to go over some stats and stuff for each player as well. But we've got all 15 of the starting point guards on each Eastern Conference team, and as y'all can see, I had to make a couple of decisions in terms of who is the point guard for a few of these teams. And maybe I didn't go with exactly the orthodox answer in every situation, but I tried my best to put together what I think is each team's starting point guard in theory. So before we hop into it, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 2,000 subscriber mark on the channel. Uploading on this channel every day, multiple videos a day. We really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. Without further ado, we're going to hop right into it. We got 5 tiers here. I don't know if I need 5, to be completely honest. In fact, I think I only need 4. With 15 guys, this is probably a fairer way to list this. So we'll start with Darius Garland. The Eastern Conference does have some really good top tier point guards. I think Darius Garland's ability to be a shooter and a shot creator puts him in that A tier, probably at the point guard position, though. The efficiency is elite at 50-43, 92.5% from the free throw line this season. He's averaging 20.5 points a game, 6.5 assists per game. The efficiency is elite. The playmaking is very high level. His assist to turnover ratio is really good, which I think is a super important indicator of a point guard's playmaking ability. He's having an awesome year and a hyper efficient one at that, career high true shooting by a pretty significant percentage this year at 63%. Before the year, probably would have put him in B. The way he's playing this year, I think he deserves to be considered an A tier point guard in the East. Jrue Holiday is maybe the best defensive guard on this list. In fact, he probably is. With that being said, I do think that the offense holds him back compared to a lot of these top tier guys. Now, that's not to say that Jrue has not been an elite offensive player at many points throughout his career. I mean, he made an all-star game for a reason. He was a over 20 point per game scorer in New Orleans. But at this point in his career, he's 12 a game and not hyper efficient as well. I mean, inside the 2-point line, he's been really efficient, but on low attempts. And he's shooting 5.5 attempts a game from 3, but only at 32.5% this year as compared to 43% last year. You'd like to see that number go up a little bit. Defensively, he is still one of the better defensive guards in all of basketball, and that provides a ton of value. But when you're considering the starting point guards, of which a lot of these guys are really good, I feel like Holiday probably goes B tier at this point. Jaylen Brunson. I think he's one of the best, if not the best point guards in the East. I think personally, I would probably have him as the best PG in the Eastern Conference right now. I'm making another video actually on Brunson and the Knicks today because he just dropped 55 points. But he's having another incredible season, and I think an underappreciated season at that, averaging almost 25 a game and almost 8 assists, 48, 42, 81 from the efficiency standpoint, and just doing it at a hyper elite level. He plays much bigger than his 6'1" frame would suggest. Honestly, he might even be a little shorter than that, but he's a physical, really good guard who gets to his spots with consistency, shoots over taller defenders and makes them at a high level, creates space at a level that guys his size generally aren't able to, and is a elite level playmaking PG with an elite assist to turnover ratio as well to boot. I think he's S tier. I think he's absolutely elite. Jaylen Suggs, I think, is B tier. I don't think he's quite C tier. The only guys who are going to be in that bottom tier on this list are 2 or 3 of these guys in this list. I don't think Jaylen Suggs is there. He's having a good year. Now, his efficiency is not on the same level as the other guys we've talked about so far. But the thing that makes Jaylen Suggs an elite level point guard is he is, again, one of the highest level defensive point guards in all of basketball. Really, really good on that end of the court. And offensively, I know he's not incredible, but he's been scoring the ball a lot more as of late, with the team needing him to be more of a scorer. Had a really efficient game, admittedly, in a loss against the Knicks and against Miami, although he didn't shoot the 3 well against Miami. But overall, I understand the efficiency isn't quite where it was. Like last season, he was shooting 40% from 3. This year, he's not close to that. He has more of an offensive role this season, responsibility, especially recently with the injuries to Paulo and now Franz as well. But I still think the defense, despite the lack of efficiency, puts him in that B tier. I think he's a very good player, and I do honestly think he is deserving of his contract. He's having a really good year. Damian Lillard. Is Dame Dollar an S tier point guard at this point in the Eastern Conference? The answer to me is maybe, in all honesty. I'm really not sure. This is the toughest spot, I think, to rank any of these point guards. There's like a second tier below the top, in my opinion, two guys in the East. And Dame is just, he's having an elite playmaking season. He's scoring the ball well, starting to shoot the three ball really well as well after kind of a down year last year. But we know Dame's one of the greatest shooters in NBA history. He's up to almost 26 a game this year as well. 91.5% from the free throw line, which is also super nice. He's the closer that Milwaukee needs offensively, and I think an absolutely crucial part of their championship hopes. Defensively, he's not on the same level as a lot of the other guys in this list. This is a tough spot to be in a Eastern Conference that has a lot of good point guards. I think I'm going A tier for Damian Lillard, and that might be a really uncontroversial decision, but that's where I'm going with him, I think. Trae Young, despite the statistical numbers, is going to go B tier to me. Not, or I guess I should say in the third tier. 22 points, 12 assists, but efficiency is really poor. 40%, 33% from three is certainly not what you're looking for. He's at only a 55% true shooting, and that is actually boosted by those free throws pretty significantly. He's not having an elite season at all efficiency-wise. The assist-to-turnover ratio is really good, especially with the amount of assists he is dishing out on a night-to-night basis, leading the league in assists by a pretty wide margin right now. Having a good year, no doubt about it, but I do think the efficiency is holding him back, and he has been much better in terms of effort defensively this year, but his size still does hurt him on the defensive end of the court. I think I'm going B for Trae, but I'm tempted to move him up to A. He's on that borderline for me. Tyler Herro, having an awesome year, all-star caliber season in Miami. He has been their best offensive player on a consistent basis this year. He's at 24-5, 47, 40, 85, having a really solid season, all things considered. He's not a uber high volume, like best scorer in the league type of volume with the scoring, but he's having a good year. I don't think he's quite on the Damian Lillard, Darius Garland, even probably Trae Young level as a point guard yet, but I have no issues whatsoever with him in the B tier. I think he's having an all-star caliber season, and I think he's a very, very good player. Tyrese Haliburton's a no-brainer B tier to me. He's having a rough year, in all honesty. Just compared to some of his other counterparts, we've talked about it multiple times on this channel, and I know a lot of people have talked about it just in general, that he is having a down year. Now, the efficiency has gone back up a bit. He's up to 43-35. It's an improvement, but he's still only at about 17 points a game on, again, not elite efficiency. He's not getting to the rim and finishing at the rim quite as much this year as he did last year. And it's 2 attempts a game less at the rim, or inside the three-point line, I guess, and he's less efficient, which has been noticeable. Not quite passing the ball, I don't feel like quite as well either this year. I mean, the assists per game's down by 2, but just in general, doesn't feel like he's quite the same dynamic playmaker and scorer that he was last year, and is struggling more, for sure. He's having a lot of more down games, a lot more games where it's like, what in the world? Why does Tyrese Haliburton have 7 points in the fourth quarter? Like, that stuff's happening pretty consistently, and it's not a good spot for him to be in. I think B tier for him is definitely fair. Josh Giddey's having a pretty good bounce back year for the Bulls, but when you compare him to everybody else in this list, there's no doubt that he is in the lowest tier. He's averaging 11, 6, and 7, but efficiency still isn't great. He's never been an elite three-point shooter, and it doesn't seem like that's starting to happen this year, really. Shooting about as much as he has throughout his career, and shooting really about how he has the last couple of years. Like, I don't feel like he's having an amazing year. He's having a decent year, but his actual assist to turnover ratio, well, the assists up. It's actually in a decent spot, but I don't know. I feel like his second year was kind of the breakout season for him in a lot of ways, at least theoretically. And then his role shrunk in OKC and now in Chicago. It just feels like he's not an afterthought, but he's not a star either. And I'm not sure he's ever really going to develop into a legitimate star, even in the Eastern Conference. I have Cade Cunningham in S tier. I think he deserves to be S tier. I think he is having a phenomenal year. I think you could actually make an argument that he's the best guard in the East right now, or the best point guard in the East. I would still lean towards Brunson, but it's hard to argue with 24, 7, and 10 on 45, 37. He's having a really, really good year. Career high shooting the three on his most attempts a game for his career. Defensively, I also think he's pretty underrated. I think he's actually a pretty impactful defender. His size helps, but he's definitely a pretty high effort defensive player as well. He has put the Pistons in a position where they're now competitive again after being just total laughingstocks these past couple of years. And Cade is having an elite season, and I don't think people really are honestly giving him enough credit for it. He's S tier for me, for sure. Tyrese Maxiell, he's bounced back in a pretty big way, I feel like, as of late. Had some rough struggles, and still efficiency-wise, I mean, it's not great, but he was about 30% from three a couple weeks ago. He's up to 34 almost. He's averaging almost 26 a game, 5.5 assists. Like, I don't want to sit here and bash Tyrese Maxiell at all. I think he's having a pretty good year. I think he's been put in some rougher situations with how many games Embiid, Paul George, other guys like that have missed, and just the overall struggles of the Sixers. But as of late, I think Tyrese Maxiell has played really well. I think he's a very good second option on a competitive team still, despite the Sixers' struggles. And I have no issues whatsoever with him still as a solid PG. Like, I think A tier, I don't know, man. His efficiency really isn't that much better than Trey's, though. And Trey, I got to move Trey up. Trey's going to go in the A tier. Tyrese Maxiell, I think, oof, we're going to put him into A tier right now. That might change. I'm not sure. Ben Simmons, go to D tier or C tier, whatever the lowest tier is. Maybe I should have named these tiers differently. I think I'll do that in the future tier list that I do, because I'm going to keep doing these for each position, especially if y'all enjoy them. But do we even need to talk about Ben Simmons at this point? Like, he's only the point guard now just because I feel like he's more of the de facto point guard now because of Dennis Schroeder being traded. And I mean, the Nets aren't good and they're not going to be good, but he is playmaking pretty well. He's kind of a do-it-all player. And if he could step out and shoot the three and had any sort of confidence whatsoever offensively, I still think he had to have the ability to be an impactful two-way player. But at this point in his career, it's just, he has fallen apart, and it's a real shame because I think he's a talented player in theory, but just has not been in practice these last couple of years. LaMelo Ball, a month ago, I would have said no-brainer S tier right now. As is recently, the shot chucking is starting to bother me. I mean, he goes 12 of 27, 11 of 32, 11 of 35 in 3 of his last 5 games. That type of efficiency is atrocious. Now, I get that he's still averaging 35 and 7.5, and the efficiency has slipped a little bit with, again, these shot chucking performances that have been pretty disastrous. But you can't argue with the elite scoring ability and the exciting style of basketball he plays. What you can't argue with is the results. And are those all his fault? Absolutely not. He's kind of still in a dysfunctional franchise with a roster that isn't elite. But you'd like to see more growth at this point in his career, I feel like, in some ways, because he's putting up the numbers, but I feel like there are still things you can criticize. The shot selection from 3, I mean, 13 threes a game is pretty ridiculous. He's an unbelievably talented player, and he is a great shooter, but I don't know. It's hard to say a guy who's averaging 35 and 7 and provides his size and playmaking ability isn't a top tier guy, but I think I'm giving him the last S tier spot, but I don't feel super confident about it. I don't know. I don't want to criticize him. I still think he's a great player, but there's some things recently that I haven't loved. Emanuel Quickley is going to go in the C tier. I'm sorry. He hasn't played all year, for one thing. That's one thing you'd have to keep in mind. He is still the point guard of the Raptors, though. And so I will leave him on this list, even though he's played a total of 3 games. Last year with Toronto, to be fair, he was almost 40% from 3, 18.5 points per game, 7 assists, and almost 5 rebounds, and doing it with a high-level assist-to-turnover ratio as well. A significant increase in offensive responsibilities once he got traded to Toronto, and I feel like he met that very, very well. And so he hasn't played barely at all this year, but I do believe he is a guy who he got paid a lot of money in the offseason, and for good reason. I think he's going to be a cornerstone for this Raptors team for a long time. Now, will he be a cornerstone for a winning Raptors team? Not sure, and I don't right now still think there's an argument to put him above C tier, but I have no problem with him at the top of C tier. I think Emanuel Quickley is a good player. Malcolm Brogdon is fine. He's a vet PG. I could have put Jordan Poole here. I decided I think Jordan Poole's more of the shooting guard for the Wizards when Malcolm Brogdon plays. I mean, the thing is, for his career, he's a better shooter than he has been this year. I think as a player, he's very solid. Honestly, I think he could be a role player, bench guard for a serious contending team still. I don't see... It's almost a shame, I feel like, that he's in Washington in his age 32 season because I feel like his career is starting to wane and he's not shooting the 3 ball as well this year, which is a shame. But I do think he's a super talented PG guy as just like a role player point guard. He's not an elite level point guard at this point in his career, though. When you look at these tiers, he is obviously in the bottom tier. And I think this is how we're going to leave the list, actually. So let me know what y'all think of this tier list in the comment section down below. If you did enjoy this type of video, make sure you leave a comment and let me know that as well. And I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon. Appreciate y'all. Peace.